So I realized after I made this video how critical, as you called it, it sounded. I wasn't meaning it in, I can't think, I just woke up. I wasn't meaning it with any disregard or demeaning to any of the medical staff. But the doctor definitely dropped the ball because he knew I was going for surgery at 1 o'clock and didn't even order an IV. And it says right on my paperwork that it's very difficult to get an IV in me and that an IV usually doesn't last. And so I usually require a PICC line. So at 12:30 when I said to the nurse, I'm going for surgery in half an hour. I have to have an IV for it. Is there an order for that? And she said no. She called the doctor, and he called me. He goes, well, because you said that you're a hard pick and need a PICC line, we didn't bother. It's like, that's not a choice to just not bother. You still have to give something. Like, if you're not ordering a PICC line, fine. Go ahead, have the nurses try to find an IV, which they couldn't. They couldn't find one. I ended up having to go down to interventional radiology, and they were able to find one using their fancy technology. And this is where it is. And it's been beeping ever since they put it in and hooked me up to IV. It's almost every minute to 2 minutes it beeps. Right now it's not because I haven't moved my arm. Really, it's outstretched. But like, if I even move it like this, for too long, it'll start beeping, or leave it like this for too long, it'll start beeping. Like, I've yet to find a position where it won't beep, and I'm not about to leave my arm hanging off the bed like this. Like, that's not comfortable at all. That's definitely shouldn't even be expected. But it's like, I understand they don't want to do PICC lines because they're high risk of infection, and also if it's not for a long period of time, then it doesn't always make sense. But like I said, I'm a very difficult pick. They have a very hard time finding my veins. I had been disconnected from fluids for 12 hours at that point, 12 and a half hours at that point, because I disconnected myself at midnight. I had to disconnect at 1 a.m., but my feed ran out at midnight, so I was just like, well, I'll just leave myself unhooked at this point. No point of wasting formula when it's going to be throwing out. So I was, dehydrated a bit, so they weren't able to find my veins very well. Makes it even harder than it already is. They wrapped warm blankets around my arm to try and bring the veins up, and they literally couldn't find them. They poked me twice upstairs. Both times my vein collapsed. And then got downstairs. He tried one vein he found, it collapsed, and then they found this other vein. It's been okay, but the IV itself isn't in a good location, I guess, because it keeps beeping whenever I move my arm. I'm making myself out to be a liar because I haven't beeped once during this video. Basically, even the nurse said last night, we're going to put this down at your level so you can hit this fancy dancy reset button. Where is it? Right there. Because of how often it was beeping. So it wasn't me trying to criticize the healthcare professionals. Like, yeah, they went to medical school, I get that. But when you've been a frequent flyer at the hospitals because of your chronic illnesses, you know what's best for your body when it comes to certain things. Absolutely, you still need to listen to the doctor, especially if it's something new. But something like this, when I've been dealing with it for the last 3 years that I've been in and out of the hospitals, I know what I'm talking about. It's the same with, they tried to give me medication orally last night. It's like, no, I don't do oral meds because I have esophagus dysphagia, and I tend to choke on oral medication. And like, oh, we need to try. So I did. And I ended up choking on it. And then I choked up the NG tube. And then they had to replace the NG tube because they had that in for drainage. So, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to me and my body and my needs. I will always listen to the doctor, and that's why I didn't argue when he said, well, we have to try regular IV first. Fine. I don't care if you have to try first. Go ahead. I just tried to save you guys time, energy, and material.